right and what's wrong. But on this night, we do what we want. We make our own rules. This is our night. This is
our show.
On this night, we rise.
This is the bleeding edge of science, technology, and ethics. This is
Solution. Unwilling to submit.
We learn all that is learnable.
Tonight, power shifts. Tonight, we raise our instruments of anarchy.
Peaceful coexistence, encryption, software, secure devices, and our minds.
Tonight, we are unbound by law.
It's time for Sovryn Tech. And now your host, the golden stallion of the tech world, the rated R radio star, Brian Sovryn.
Woo! Because you know, when the golden stallion gets behind the mic, baby, what does everybody say? They say, Joe Rogan, who? They say Adam Carolla, who? Tim Ferriss, who? Woo! Because when you're talking about podcasting, when you're talking about the newest news, the most exciting news about getting sweaty, you know, they're talking about the golden stallion, baby. They're talking about Brian Sovryn, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, and Sovryn Tech is on. So all you Sovryn Tech sweaties, let's get to it. It's time, as always, to get sweaty. Woo, baby. And what a show I've got lined up for you. What a show. And you know, I got to be careful with this one because you can fall into a very morose trap. If you let some stuff get to you too much. So I'm going to try and split this up a bit to where half of it, well, admittedly, is going to be some very, very, somber and very unfortunate topics. And then perhaps the other half, or at least, the other quarter or other third, maybe we can have a little more fun and get away a little bit from the seriousness. But, oh, man, I think for a lot of people, they think the world's falling apart right now, with everything going on in Turkey, in Istanbul and in France, and in the United States. I mean, everywhere people are like, oh, civilization is collapsing. Oh my God, we're all going to die. Well, come on. I love the phrase, and then this is going to, we'll get into our lead story about this, but I love the phrase that really nothing's changed, only the cameras are new. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. To really, things aren't necessarily any worse or any stranger than they were, years ago. I mean, there's aspects that are new, like the cameras, or perhaps robots. We'll talk about that. But I think there's truth to it. Now there's just light is being shined upon, a lot of these matters, a lot of these situations, but they in of themselves are not really, new things. And as far as even the frequency within which they happened, are not terribly new. And some aspects of all of this, aren't being covered, at all. So, and these things need to be brought to light as well. But anyway, this is a tech show, so we are going to largely deal with the tech angle on a lot of this stuff. And there's a lot of angles of tech to cover with it. So anyway, before we get into all of that, I do want to say that, I announced it last week that I would be, for Patreon subscribers, and if you wanted to do it through Bitcoin and some other means, of course, you can email me, contact.zog.ninja to get in touch. But that Patreon subscribers of Sovryn Tech, donators or patrons as they're called on there, would be getting exclusive content. And that was just released yesterday, actually. Sovryn Tech gets recorded and released every Saturday. At least usually it's recorded every Saturday, but it's definitely been coming out every Saturday for years. But that exclusive content, it's out there. You can go, if you want to become a Patreon subscriber, you can check it out and find it. And I've already gotten some people emailed me and they said they really enjoyed it. So that's awesome. And there's going to be a lot more to come. There's a lot, tons. Actually, next week, there's a whole 5-part series that's going up. Part 1 of that's already up. The other 4 parts I will release next week, because I was kind of testing the waters to see, it's like, all right, let's not blow my load all at once. And let's see how, one little special or exclusive episode does on there, and then the following week, as long as there aren't any technical problems, I'll release everything else. And as yet, there have been no technical problems, so I think everything's good. But I will tell you that if you do go through the Patreon, it's really the easiest way to do it. You can download the episodes right from the mobile. Well, you can do it through the mobile website. You can do it through the desktop website. You just go to patreon.com/SovrynTech. You can download it right there as long as you're a Patreon subscriber. You can stream it right from Patreon right there, as long as you can do that. There is no RSS feed, at least not at this point. And I don't, if this really takes off, like if I get, so I have quite a few thousand listeners for Sovryn Tech. If thousands of you, or even hundreds of you, decide to sign up for Patreon, then I will look into making RSS feeds and all that available. But I'm not saying I need to make it worth it to do it, because you fall into the fallacy of, it's like, well, you pay me first and then I'll do the work or something like that. I mean, I don't exactly mean to go that way, but bottom line is that, that would be, that would take some doing, and I'm more than willing to do it. It's just right now, I want to gauge interest in this whole thing. Now, the other nice thing is that with Patreon, this makes it very easy for me with Patreon. There's a double ability here, because you can, if I get up to $500 in subscribers, okay, and you can donate whatever you want to be a Patreon subscriber. All right. But if I get up to $500, that will fund me doing a second episode of Sovryn Tech a week. And that will include tech news, and that will also include, sometimes that'll be a special, like, a full topic or something like this. So it won't just be like, sometimes it'll be another episode of Sovryn Tech. Other times it might be something a little bit different, but that will fund a second episode. But I've got to get the $500 a month to do that. But you can do that by becoming a Patreon subscriber. So I just wanted to get that bit of housekeeping out of the way and let you know, already has some great patrons on there. And like I said, they're already enjoying the content, and I am so honored by that. Thank you. And it's a lot of fun to do it. And I have a lot of informative stuff that I'll be coming out. really, really, in-depth analysis that I'll be doing in some episodes, and then some episodes are just going to be a lot of fun. Like, hey, Star Trek Beyond's coming out this week, baby. And, I'll probably do some kind of a review on Sovryn Tech for that, but then I'd also love to do a full review where it's, the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy and I. And I know everybody loves to hear her, her thoughts on anything, really. Yeah, there she is. She said she'll be on a lot of the bonus stuff. And so if you want more of her and me, but, I don't blame you for wanting a lot of her, then by all means, sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/SovrynTech. All right. Spent way too much time on talking about that when I already talked about it last week, which Stephanie was on last week. And some people have said that is one of the best episodes of Sovryn Tech they've ever heard. So do give that a listen. That would be episode 183. We talked about UBI and all this different stuff. And it was it was a great episode. It was a great time. And also, actually, out of that, I was offered to write for Obsolete Press, their magazine Obsolete, and issue number 10 is going to be coming out. And I love Obsolete. I've yet to read content from it on this show, but there's so much great shit in it that a lot of it I do want to read on the show at some point. But anyway, I am really excited about that. And I will be writing up an article about universal basic income for issue number 10 of Obsolete. So go to Obsolete. I believe it's obsoletepress.com. I'll put a link in the show notes for it. And you can get your hands on issue number 9 and back issues, I assume. But I will be in issue number 10. So really honored by that as well. Anyway, I love zine culture. I can't begin to tell you. In fact, I've Hey, I don't know if I mentioned this on Sovereign Tech recently, but I'm kind of doing an experiment to where I am slowing down my own personal news cycle, to where I am reading more magazines than I am websites. And, you know, I'm finding it to be a very positive experience. Now, obviously they're digital magazines. I'm not, going off killing trees or anything, en masse. But I mean, regardless of that, digital magazines are just convenient. And so, I've been reading those, quite a bit. And yeah, I mean, I've talked about my love of magazines for some time, but yeah, zine culture in general, and that's being a little more specific. I really think it's just a wonderful thing. And it's something that never died. And it was really, I think in many ways outside of like pirate radio, it was really the original new media. It was the original alternative media, where you really found out, what's the phrase from Putney Swope? The drum. Yeah. Where'd you hear about it? I heard it on the drum, man. I love that movie. But yeah, it's the original drum, how you found out information. I always loved how in Putney Swope, like you'd find out before telephones or anything could get the information to you. The drum told you what the deal was. And so I like to think, maybe zine culture and podcasts too are really a part of that. Because of course, Sovereign Tech, boy, I'm not the only person that said it, but a lot of people have said this is the official podcast of the future. In fact, I got an email from the future. Obviously I'm saying this in jest, but I did really get somebody email me claiming to be for the future. It was funny, saying that they would like me to cease and desist from calling Sovereign Tech the official podcast of the future. Well, the nice thing is that the future isn't a category, so I can say it's the official podcast of the future all I want. How do you like that little legal trick? But anyway, I know the person was just having fun. So the future, my apologies, but I am representing you right now. All right, let's really get into the random access. Enough BS. Let's get into the random access, and then we've got a couple of big topics to get into. Starting off with, and this actually directly relates to what I opened up last week's show with as far as the random access goes. I had mentioned, of course, we were talking about Windows 10 Anniversary Edition coming out on August 2nd of 2016. But I had mentioned in that, talking about that, I said eventually Office is going to come out for Linux. That'll happen probably very soon. And I think some news came out that actually bolsters this fact. And the news is that Linux, there is, and this is something we've talked about this on Sovereign Tech 2 before. Linux for Linux, Skype for Linux, folks. It was a late night. I'm running on low sleep, but we're trudging on. Skype for Linux was, a lot of people are like, wow, they haven't updated the app in years. And now there's group calling features. There's all these various features for Skype, that have come since the last update. I mean, and major features that have come since the update, or since the last time it was, Skype was updated for Linux. And so a lot of people are like, well, there goes that. And love or hate Skype, for a lot of the media industry, it is a requirement. People are not using Viber, people are not whatever. People are using Skype, bottom line. And a lot of podcasts rely upon Skype entirely. And so, Skype is, and this is an old theory of mine, Skype is the sort of the Trojan horse that Microsoft has for anything. And they could really, it hasn't happened yet. Skype, even as entrenched as Skype is, it really hasn't happened yet to where I think Microsoft thought years ago when they bought Skype, I think they thought that if they could get people reliant upon Skype, they could control the platforms. They could control any platform, because effectively they could rip Skype out from underneath whoever. And this is probably why Apple developed FaceTime, because they knew they needed an alternative to Skype, probably because they guessed what I guessed, that Skype is really Microsoft's ability to control, operating systems and all that. Because the idea, do you get what I'm saying? Because this is the idea, is that if Microsoft, just pulled, say, Skype away from iOS or Android or something, then the theory goes is that people would go to whatever operating system still had Skype. They would just have to leave because they just need Skype. That hasn't happened, and Skype's really not at the point right now. Maybe it'll never be at that point, because it is such janky software. It has real problems. Despite how much people need it. maybe that'll never happen. But bottom line, I think that there is a new alpha getting released for Linux, particularly, works best on Ubuntu and all that, right? But Skype, there's a new alpha for it, and it's going to have all the new features. It is an alpha. That means it's, not ready for daily use or, mission critical stuff. But it was developed and it was put out there. And Microsoft made it very clear that they are, bullish on Linux. They are, dedicated to that platform. And so I think that this bolsters the fact that, yes, eventually Office will come to, Office 365 in particular will come to Linux. I know you can use it through web interface. I get it. You could probably use a, virtual machine or something, but it really is very different. Virtual machines are not perfect. Despite what anybody may tell you, despite what the math may say, I'm not saying the math is lying. I'm just saying it never shapes up that way. Some part of it is lying because it just, like when you virtual machine games, it doesn't matter how much RAM you have. You run into lag. It just doesn't matter. It's going to do that. Now you can say Office isn't that intensive. I understand that. Okay. But most people also don't want to go through the trouble of setting up virtual machines. And it's really antithetical to the goals of most Linux distributions today, which is all about making them so easy that anybody can use them and anybody can get on board with it. Right. So, they having people have to set up virtual machines kind of goes against what, what a lot of companies' goals for Linux are right now, bottom line. So anyway, I think Office is coming, will be coming that way eventually. And in particular, and I think people that use Linux will jump onto Office? Yeah, I really do. Especially, Office 365, you got to understand this, like Microsoft just bought LinkedIn. Probably LinkedIn Premium is probably going to get bundled in with Office 365. There will probably be advanced Skype features that will become a part of Office 365. For only $10 a month, I think a lot of people are going to see a ton of value in this. And also maybe if Microsoft releases Office for Linux, I don't think it's an if, but if, then they will have a native OneDrive client on the desktop. Okay. And that's something that Google is, if I remember correctly, Google doesn't even offer that with Google Drive, to where you have a client on the desktop that you can interact with and have stuff offline and all of that on. Okay. So, I think people would jump on this, and especially if, understand that Microsoft right now, the bulk of the money that Microsoft is making is off of Office 365 subscriptions. They're doing billions off that. Okay. So they don't need you to be on Windows to make money. All right. And so they don't need to sell you Windows necessarily to make money, even though the enterprise area is certainly the other place where they're making a ton of money, which is part of why Office makes so much money. Okay. But if a company says, oh, wait a second, I can get this free operating system, that being Linux, as in it costs no money, and I can get that installed, and then I can just run Office on top of that. Hell yeah, businesses are going to do that. And Microsoft knows that they're going to do that. Like there's lots of incentives to do it. So it's only smart, for everybody involved. Now, not a fan of Microsoft. I'm not saying people should, I'm not even recommending that people get into Microsoft's platform. It's better than going into Google's, in my opinion, for a bunch of reasons. But regardless, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that this is how people will think, and this is how, I think things will end up being. So the new Skype alpha, I think, is a sign of things to come as far as Microsoft and Linux goes. But anyway, here's an interesting, speaking of, I mentioned Google, but Google Chrome, I thought this was fascinating. Some people noticed in one of the dev channels, which ends up, that's Canary, for desktop. That's what they call it. With Google Chrome, they noticed a flag, which is, if you go to Chrome, colon / blah, 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 extensions, right? Or not extensions, settings. I think that's the command. If you go into that, there is a flag for quantum encryption. And this is really interesting. It's called New Hope. I don't know if that's a Star Wars reference or not. But yeah, it is quantum encryption. And it looks like, this is so, okay. I don't want to get into a whole screed about quantum encryption. I did that a couple of years ago on Sovryn Tech, and I talked about, pros and cons and, what's going on with quantum computing in general. So and I don't know the episode name, otherwise I'd tell you, and you can check it out. But you could probably do a search, go to sovryntech.com and type in quantum computing, or go to zog.ninja and type that in, and maybe it'll show up. But anyway, with quantum encryption, so you have quantum computing, which is becoming a thing. I mean, we're a little bit away. There's already, like, what is it, the D5 or the D4 wave or whatever computer, some of the stuff already exists. But there's a real concern about quantum computing cracking public key encryption. Now, understand, quantum computing's encryption, it's only going to affect, like, asymmetric encryption, like public key, crypto, which so much relies upon, right? Bitcoin, all these different things, so many things use public key encryption. Google's really getting out in front of this and testing out, it seems, what is a lattice style quantum encryption scheme. Lattice, the idea is they call it lattice because think of lattice work. Think of like lattice that goes up the side of a house that allows vines to grow up it, right? This lattice, it hides, like, you can see through some of it, but you can't see through all of it, right? It allows some of the wind to go through, but not all of the wind. That, just picture that and picture a quantum computer trying to break that encryption, or, just trying to get through whatever encryption. But with a lattice setup, that this is kind of, I'm trying to visualize it for you. It can't see everything. And that's kind of the trick. So this is one of, lattice encryption, lattice styled encryption is one of the things that people have been theorizing for quite a few years, would be the way to encrypt against quantum computers. And again, this is only going to affect, public key crypto, sort of like AES 256 and all that. I mean, that's not really something that quantum computers are going to necessarily work against. As I understand it. I mean, I'm not this grand computer scientist, but I mean, I've certainly read up quite a bit on quantum computing and quantum encryption. So anyway, that's interesting that Google is already on top of that. Hopefully other companies will get on top of it as well, because I do think quantum computing is going, it either is a reality already, albeit impractical, but it may become a practical reality, I guess is what I should say. Even though some people debate whether or not quantum computers, like even the D-Wave, are even technically quantum computers, but that's a whole other conversation for another time. Let's see. I got a ton more random access to get into. I don't know if I'm going to get into all of it. Here's another little Microsoft story that I want to mention. I think this is important. They released a new app for iOS, shockingly, because I think where this is going, iOS isn't concentrating on, at least not right now. But for iOS, it's called Thinga.me. That's THINGA.me. And this is an app that, again, not available for Android right now. It's just iOS. It's an app that allows you to, as I understand it, take a picture of something that you own. Like, say I have a comic book. I don't know, Action Comics #1, right? It would allow me to take a picture of that. And then in the app, it creates a digital shelf upon which that thing sits. So it's a way of cataloging, like, literally everything you own. Okay. And putting it onto kind of a virtual shelf, not necessarily a bookshelf, but a shelf. Now, a lot of people are like, what the hell? Why is this even being made? What's the deal here? And certainly a lot of, privacy advocates, or, normal people, what used to be called normal people, privacy advocates are kind of like, wait a second, why does Microsoft want to catalog everything I fucking own? Isn't that kind of creepy? Yeah, it is. I agree with you. But I think that the purpose of this is interesting, and it actually is leading to a direction that I am a huge supporter of on Sovryn Tech. I think this is leading to virtual property. Or virtual possessions. This is leading to, one of the things I'm excited about with virtual reality is, like, I love the fact, like with Bitcoin, you have Bitcoin that allows for, that allows for virtual money that you can kind of take with you, not virtual money, but digital money that you can take with you anywhere. And so what I've been wanting out of virtual reality in particular, and to some degree augmented reality, which is more what Microsoft's HoloLens is about, is the ability to take things with you, to take possessions with you, that can exist digitally and they still serve the same job. That won't work with everything, obviously. You can't drink tea necessarily, virtually or digitally, but you could take a lot with you. And I think that this is part of that. This is Microsoft creating a database for you personally and for their overall, HoloLens system, to allow you to have your property, possessions, whatever, available in augmented reality or in virtual reality. I think that's what this is really about. Even though right now it just looks like, oh, this is really cool, I can just catalog everything I have. And believe me, there are a lot of people that do that. There are people that like catalog every ebook they have, every book they have. There used to be really popular software that was all about cataloging all your DVDs and everything. People love to do this stuff. They love to have these library systems and all that. And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, where I think there's a problem is, who gets to keep the database, you or some other company, and thus, the US government or whatever government around the world. That's a problem. Okay. But the idea and the abstract itself is perfectly great. I mean, it's like just being a virtual librarian. It's wonderful. But I think that's really the plan here. And no one really, when everybody was talking about Thynga.me and they were announcing it, they just seemed confused. They didn't get it. Well, I'm here to end your confusion. I think that this is all about HoloLens. This is all about, creating a more interesting augmented reality experience and really allowing you to have everything you own, inside of augmented reality. And then that creates a whole bunch of different, prospects. Of course, again, same problem. If you're relying on Microsoft to keep storage of what you own, then, well, there's issues there because they could take it all away, right? Or a server could fail and it's all gone. But anyway, so that's Microsoft's Thynga.me. Let's see what other interesting. This is, speaking of another thing that another part of the future that I'm kind of looking forward to. This came out and then I have one other little story and then we will get into our main story. There was a leak. And this is apparently a relatively official leak that Google is developing 2 smartwatches. They are developing 2 Android Wear devices. Okay. And one of them isn't that interesting. One's a smaller model. The other is a much larger model. The much larger one right now is codenamed Angelfish. And this is kind of believable because I know the new phones that are supposed to be announced this coming fall, whenever Google has whatever event they want to call that. They used to just do stuff at Google I/O. Now they have multiple events a year. But the new phones, I think, are called Sailfish, and there's another code name. But anyway, what's really interesting here for me is especially the Angelfish. This is the larger of the 2 smartwatches that apparently Google's developing. It is like the LG Urbane 2 LTE or 2nd edition LTE, right? Whatever that ridiculously long name was, where it has everything built into it. It has the potential for a SIM card. It has GPS. It has everything that a smartphone has. It has, and I think this is great. I'm actually really excited about this. And part of the leak was claiming that this watch could work with Project Fi. Now, I don't recommend using Project Fi necessarily. Okay, I mean, really any telco you use, you're kind of fucked and you're paying into the surveillance system, surveillance society, no question there. Okay. So whatever. I just don't like Google having all of my data in one spot. But anyway, this Angelfish, watch, I think could be really interesting because I have talked about how I want, right now, I think smartwatches are ridiculous. Okay. Right now, I think, Android Wear, Apple Watch and all that, they're just stupid. And they're stupid because they don't really serve a purpose outside of the smartwatch or outside of the smartphone. Now, if they replaced the smartphone, then it gets interesting. Then I see the technology is viable. Otherwise, it's moronic. I think that, the tech to have, at least to the extent of what these Android Wear and Apple Watch can do, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Like if you have Pebble, and you just something that lets you check notifications and the battery lasts forever, that's fine. But if we're talking about devices where the battery only lasts a day, if that, or 2, most likely not, then really it's a very impractical thing to be wearing. It's a very impractical thing to own, in my opinion. And if you're into the quantified self, heart rate monitoring and all that, there's much better devices that offer a lot more advantages than, using Android Wear or Apple Watch, things like Fitbit and all this, even though, let's be clear, all of these are glorified trackers. So is your smartphone. We'll get into that a little bit later. We are going to talk about Pokemon Go. But anyway, with this Angelfish watch from Google, I think this could be the device that is the smartphone replacement, or at least the option, the alternative. It's an option. Maybe the smartphone will never go away, but maybe both form factors can exist into perpetuity, and whatever, that's fine. So I found this really, really interesting that they are doing this. And I want to see it, and if it's going to be a Nexus device, that means generally, you're going to be able to, get hacking, with it. I mean, that's why Nexus devices are so popular, because, bootloaders unlocked, all this different stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this, but I really want that device. I want that smartwatch that can replace the smartphone. If you have concerns about that, or you think there's things that you want to do on a smartphone that are impractical on a smartwatch, listen to past episodes of Sovryn Tech. I've covered all of them, and they're all possible with a smartwatch right now, especially now that Android Wear 2.0 allows for apps to work independently of the smartphone. So I think this is direction things are going, and I'm really excited, honestly, that this, potential Nexus watch, will be coming out. So, all right, one last story in, with the random access, and then we will get into the main story. This is a case we've covered a couple times on Sovryn Tech. We've been, following it. Yes, it is a legal case. I don't give a shit about laws, but whatever. Sometimes this stuff is interesting. And it has to do with Microsoft versus the Department of Justice, as in the United States Department of Justice. And what happened is a few years ago, the DOJ told, effectively the DOJ, whatever alphabet soup organization, was wanting it or whatever is kind of meaningless. So effectively the government, how about that? The government was telling Microsoft that you need to hand over various data and emails and whatever from your servers in Ireland. Now, the reason that Microsoft has servers in Ireland and all that is because it's kind of a haven for taxes and other data. So, it makes sense that they have stuff there. And so Microsoft said, no, you can't have it. Now, this is very interesting. And in fact, they recently reiterated, because they were going into court again about it. This was a few months ago. This was just slightly after, Apple versus the FBI, right? That everybody was going crazy about. And Microsoft came out with a statement saying, look, you wouldn't just let somebody walk into your house and go sifting through all your stuff and then leave without you knowing, or even without your permission, blah, blah, blah. So why does what happens in the physical space, why are the rules any different in the digital space? It was a fantastic stance for a company to take. It was a far better stance than Apple took in Apple versus FBI, because Apple said, no, we would gladly hand you over all the iCloud data. We would have gladly worked with you. But you kind of fucked it up to where, it's beyond our means, or it's beyond how far we want to go. And this is what's so annoying about the story, because Microsoft won the case against the DOJ. They won the case against the U.S. government, and they are not going to have to turn over their information that is on their Irish servers. Awesome. Good. I'm glad a company stood up against the U.S. government. Fantastic. Okay, but here's what's annoying about this. And if you want to get into, well, they probably already handed it, or whatever. In popular perception, in conventional perception, here's my problem with this whole story. All right, I'm glad Microsoft won. I'm glad the U.S. government got the shaft. But nobody's talking about this. Microsoft took a stance, a far more principled stance, a far superior stance, was dealing with a far greater case than Apple ever was. But when it was Apple versus FBI, it was all over. It was on every fucking news. Everybody was sharing it. even anarchists and all that, everybody's like, oh yeah. Oh, Apple versus FBI. Oh, this is so important. Oh, thank you, Apple, blah, 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 which I immediately, when that story happened on Sovryn Tech, I immediately came out and said, no. Apple's not taking any grand stance. Bullshit. They are happy to hand over the information and the data. It's like, oh, they don't want to break encryption. Well, so what does the encryption matter if Apple can just hand over all your iCloud data anyway, right? But nobody's talking about this with Microsoft. Why? Because it's Microsoft. Because it's not Apple. It's not sexy like Apple. The double standard, the bullshit. Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, like for a lot of people, I think that they shared that whole Apple story all to get, more likes and clicks and whatever on whatever they wrote about or on their website or something like this. Yeah, that's how it works, blah, blah, blah. I know. Well, I don't like it. Okay. Because when somebody actually wins against the U.S. government, when somebody actually takes a really great stance against the U.S. government, which at least in writing, and at least in, within the judicial system as we can see, Microsoft actually did. No one cares because I think they think that, well, writing about Microsoft, nobody's going to read that. But if you write about Apple, oh yeah, we'll get all those rich people to look at it and all this stuff. Where's your principles? Journalists and supposed people that actually, want to stick it to the man, like the U.S. government, that want to stick it to the U.S. government. Where are you? I was so pissed off. So many people should have been talking about this. It should have been the highlight of, like, I should have seen that, and it should have been just like Apple versus FBI. My feeds, my various social media feeds should have been loaded with, people lauding, and applauding Microsoft. Nope. I was the only person that shared about it. And in fact, I even commented underneath the share of the story, and I said, how ridiculous. It's like Microsoft did what Apple couldn't and wouldn't do, and nobody's talking about it. And then just some shithead, said like, well, it's because Microsoft makes bullshit operating systems. Fuck you. I mean, what? I tell you, I could go on and on and on and on and on. All right. The liberty movement, all right, and for people that are listening to this, it's a tech show and don't know anything about libertarianism or anarchism, because I know there's a lot of you that aren't in that space. You listen to the show for other reasons. Okay, but the liberty movement, it's a group of libertarians, anarchists, blah blah blah. It's kind of a blanket term for that. I mean, I think it's full of wannabe demigods. It's full of prima donnas. And all of this is just really highlighting the fact that is so. How annoying, how goddamned annoying that is, and how disappointing. So happy to really, I don't really want to consider myself even a part of it. It's just maddening. And look, and if people are see, this is the thing. If somebody was saying, well, Microsoft probably already handed it over, blah, 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 blah. If that was their position, okay, fine. I get that. Why you're not excited about this story. I think that's a perfectly valid thing to think. But then I guarantee you they were still excited and hot and bothered about Apple versus FBI. That's the problem, is that, you're a hypocrite. So anyway, just putting that out there. The reality is not what you know. I could go on and on. Everything on the internet, it's so hard to trust what you're reading, and everybody's motivations are completely fucking skewed. They so are. Let's get into, boy, I've been talking forever, and we've got talking about seeing things on the internet and perceptions. That's what I want to talk about. I mentioned last week that I would talk, I would dedicate as much as this episode as possible to the recent situations that have happened, in Dallas, in other parts of the United States. I didn't want to talk about it last week because, I think opinions were too hot. People were just too emotional, and that doesn't lend itself well necessarily to rational thinking. Not that there's anything wrong with getting hot and bothered or, getting angry or getting emotional about these sorts of things, because they're certainly worthy of it. But let's get into it. And I want to start off with talking about the story relevant to Facebook. Let's break into it. And I'm going to read a story here. This is from the Register by Ian Thompson, who is really, I like Ian Thompson, British guy. He's one of the rare voices out there that actually gets onto, like really large tech venues and all that gives a damn about privacy. It's kind of his beat, and cares about civil liberties and all this. So I really appreciate his work. And here's his covering of it. This story is from July 8th. Of course, the event itself happened on July 6th, 2016. And here's the headline: Facebook, quote unquote, glitch that deleted the Philando Castile shooting video. It was the police, according to sources. Footage vanished on command, not by a tech gremlin. Let's read here. The deadly shooting of 32-year-old Philando Castile by a cop during a routine traffic stop in Minnesota on Wednesday just got murkier. Now, of course, Philando Castile was a black man, and he is somebody who had gotten pulled over many, many times, didn't really have anything. I mean, maybe had a parking ticket or something, but really, did not have, for all intents and purposes, a criminal record, no worse than any other, than the average person, as I understand it, as the information has been presented to me. But he is black, and I think that is important, to consider in all of this, right? Driving while black. Guess what, folks? Racism is still a thing. All right, deal with it. And I mean it. Do deal with it. Do something about it. But anyway, I won't get on that train just yet. But reading on, multiple sources have told the Register that police removed video footage of Castile's death from Facebook, potentially tampering with evidence. Castile, his girlfriend, Diamond Reynolds, and her 4-year-old daughter were pulled over by police in the Falcon Heights suburbs of Minneapolis for a broken taillight. Using her cell phone and Facebook Live, Reynolds, that's the girlfriend, web streamed footage of her dying boyfriend after he was shot by a police officer as he reached for his ID in his wallet. Particularly, Stallion breaking in, he was shot in the arm, and he did end up bleeding to death from that shot, I believe. The video was mysteriously removed from her Facebook profile as it went viral across the internet. On Thursday, Facebook said a quote-unquote technical glitch caused the recording to be pulled from its social network. However, Reynolds claimed officers seized her phone and took over her Facebook account to delete the evidence. Multiple sources with knowledge of the event have tonight confirmed to the Register that someone, highly suspected to be the city's police, used her phone to remove her recording from public view shortly after the shooting. This was no technical glitch. That vanishing act prevented anyone from sharing and watching the vid until the material was restored about an hour later with a graphic content warning. In the meantime, copies of the footage spread across Twitter and YouTube. Quote, "They took my phone. They took over my Facebook. They took everything I had at the time," end quote, said Reynolds in an emotional press conference after she was arrested by police. Quote, "Everyone who shared my video, they don't want you guys to be a part of this. They don't want us to support each other. They're going to tamper with evidence. This is not right. This is not acceptable. A police officer should not be able to gun a man down for no reason," end quote. A spokesperson for the Falcon Heights Police Department was not available for comment. At a press conference on Thursday, the U.S. state's Democratic Governor Mark Dayton said he was appalled by the killing, adding that had Castile been white, he would still be alive today. There was a troubling pattern of racism in the police force, he said, and this would be investigated. Whatever. Politics isn't going to solve any of this shit. Reading on, quote, "I can't say how shocked I am and deeply, deeply offended that this would happen to somebody in Minnesota," end quote, Dayton said grimly. Quote, "No one should be shot in Minnesota for a taillight being out of function. No one should be killed in Minnesota while seated in their car," end quote. No one should be pulled over for politicians. Reading on. Reynolds said she was held in a police station until 3 a.m. on Thursday before her boyfriend's death was confirmed. And 2 hours later, she was dropped off at home by a squad car. Quote, "The images we've seen this week are graphic and heartbreaking, and they shine a light on the fear that millions of members of our community live with every day," end quote, said Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Quote, "While I hope we never have to see another video like Diamond's, it reminds us why coming together to build a more open and connected world is so important and how far we still have to go," end quote. Zuck, what the fuck? It's your PR department or your company that came out and said this was a technical glitch. if you want to solve things, point fingers where they need to be pointed. Point them at the fucking police. Your words mean nothing, Zuck, if you're not going to really look at the root of the problem. We have a long way to go? Yeah, I'll say, and you're not helping at all. Because you're not saying where the problem is. Instead, you're having your company come out and say, oh, it was a technical glitch. Bullshit. And if you don't know what it is, say, we're looking into the problem. I'm sorry, we don't know. Ridiculous. Reading on, the growth of cell phone video recording has been a potent force in exposing some of the worst excesses of criminals and those who are supposed to uphold the law. But Ian Thompson won't say this, but I'll say this, but you repeat yourself. The savage beating of Rodney King, caught on a home video camera in 1991, sparked the LA riots, but this was just a precursor to the spread of images and video captured by mobile phone cameras. In the past few years, we've seen police officers and crooks being caught on cell phones and home security cams breaking the law. The recordings have proved to be much more reliable as evidence than eyewitness accounts of serious wrongdoing. Attempts to arm the police with cameras that would protect them from claims of wrongdoing have been stymied by the astonishingly high rate of failure in the hardware designed to protect them. Now, we've talked about that on Sovereign Tech before, Stallion breaking in. Okay. And this is where, well, I'll get into that, but we talked about the fact that, where's the video footage from the police cameras? Oh, we broke the camera. Oh, sorry, Judge, but hey, we're with you. So trust us. Reading on, at the same time, cell phone footage of actual arrests and killings have served as damning evidence against claims of legitimate takedowns by officers. In multiple cases, police have confiscated smartphones from bystanders. As more and more people get the means to broadcast events live, this issue is going to come to the fore. The U.S. courts have waxed and waned over whether citizens have the right to record public police arrests. However, the deletion of evidence is a definite no-no. Quote, all Americans should recognize the anger, frustration, and grief that so many Americans are feeling, feelings that are being expressed in peaceful protests and vigils. Michelle and I share those feelings, end quote, said President Obama in a Facebook message on Thursday. Yeah, that helps. Quote, rather than fall into a predictable pattern of division and political posturing, let's reflect on what we can do better. Let's come together as a nation and keep faith with one another in order to ensure a future where all of our children will know that their lives matter, end quote. What a bunch of crap. No mention of the institutionalized racism and violence. And actually, Obama's good for that because he's one of the few politicians that has stated what government is. It is the monopoly on the use of force. That is a direct quote from President Obama. And that's the truth. But no comments on any of what the real problems here are. The problems is that police forces even exist. Okay, I think in a free society, they wouldn't. But that's not what I want to get into here. What I want to get into, and I already mentioned how it's bullshit that Facebook said, well, this is a technical glitch. Great. So Facebook is the ultimate disseminator of Facebook Live and all this info. And they can make willy-nilly claims as far as if it ever goes down and what the actual situation is. And I have a hard time believing, here's the other thing too. And we'll get into this later when we talk about Pokemon Go. If you are concerned about your privacy and you have the Facebook app on your phone, you've got issues. I mean, you have no privacy with that app on your phone. That app asks for every permission. There's no way that inside of a few minutes, Facebook did not know that what was going on with that phone. They had to know. And especially since you're using Facebook Live, clearly the Facebook app was on that phone. They knew the situation that was going down. I gotta believe they knew the telemetry. They had to know it was not a technical glitch. They had to know, and they lied to everybody saying that it was. Hell, they could turn on the cameras themselves. I don't doubt that for a second because the app allows for the permission to do so. And Diamond Reynolds probably had the Messenger app on as well, which gives even more control. Yeah, I mean, every phone with Facebook apps on it is effectively pwned, not owned, PWNED by Facebook. Facebook can just take over that thing. I mean, even the Messenger app even says it can make phone calls and texts for you. But that's not the point I'm trying to get into here. Okay. What I want to get into is that, I get it. I am so saddened by what happened, in this situation and by any situation that happens like it. Okay, I am so saddened by that. And I'm glad that it was brought to light, that people were able to see the institutionalized violence, that people were able to see the oppression, that people were able to see the racism. Yes, it's there. But I'm at the same time, okay, this is my concern, is that people will, over time, become reliant upon, well, we will solve all of this. I mean, there's stuff going on in Istanbul right now that's being shown on Facebook Live and all that, and you're getting this interesting view and all this. Understand that interesting view, that unique ability to see these crimes or to see these revolutions or to see whatever else is going on is ultimately in the hands of the powers that be. It is ultimately, all Facebook has to do is to say, oh, fuck, technical glitch. You can't see what's happening in Istanbul. Oh, fuck, technical glitch. You can't see this police situation happen. Or they can remove it and, get it sent off to, or, and make sure that it doesn't, it's non-existent to be admissible in court. This is my concern, is that relying upon Facebook for this sort of thing is really you are rolling the dice with the ability to keep this information and to be able to use it to defend yourself. All right. When I talked about, because there's a lot of measures out there right now to put cameras on cops. Clearly, as you can see here, to some degree. Now, fortunately, people were, and I'll get into more on this. Fortunately, people were able to record or at least, keep the video that Reynolds was sharing. But, even that situation, that ability is, they're really trying to make that go away, because this is so Facebook Live, you can only use that, as I understand it, on a smartphone. You cannot use it in the web browser, right? So there's the problem, is that Facebook has ultimate control of the app and what the app can do, as to where if it was a feature that was a little more desktop oriented or that you could do through the website or whatever, you could get control over it, through your browser or whatever. You would have more control. This is the problem, is that really most people, especially Facebook Live and Periscope and some of these others, you generally, Periscope lets you keep the recorded video. I don't know about Facebook Live, if it allows for that. But you don't have control of that video. Okay. You don't ultimately, that's where, for this to really work, for this to be really exciting, quote unquote, that's kind of where it needs to be. The control, the storage of it needs to be really decentralized, really distributed, and Facebook is not the system that's going to allow for that. So I am concerned that people may get really cocky. People may get really, or not cocky. People may get really more brazen, and I'm not blaming them for being that way. And they think that they will just be able to use Facebook Live and it will bring light to every situation and all this stuff. And understand, what's even happening to these police that shot Castile? Anything? So you caught it on video. So what? Nobody's doing shit about this. In fact, this story's from July 8th. There's barely any new news on this situation. This should still be hot on the lips. It should be hot on the press. What did recording it do? Yes, I'm so glad it showed people, the nature of the system in a lot of ways. Okay. But there are no consequences yet. Not really. Not really. I'm very concerned about this. And what's worse, again, is just Facebook can just come out and say it was a technical glitch and nobody cares. Nobody's going after Facebook about this. I think Facebook is near complicit. I think Facebook's an arm of the state. And I think that if and we're only guessing right now that what happened is that the cops, just shut down the live feed on her phone and took over her Facebook account and deleted it. We're not even sure that that's 100% accurate. Okay. We don't know that. It could be just as simple as the police call up Facebook HQ. Maybe they have a nice little red phone right there and they say, we need you to take that video down right now. We need you to shut this down, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I get it. I'm glad right now there are, some of this stuff is getting highlighted, but I think we're heading to a time very, very quickly to where the democratization of surveillance, perhaps, this what some people consider a golden age, or what David Brin would call covalence, where, or was it Cory Doctorow's little brother, where, he keeps an eye on Big Brother, right? You're losing control of that. And part of that is due to the app economy. It's due to the fact that you don't have open platforms that make use of this stuff. Everything's very closed in. It's all walled gardens like Facebook, and you don't have ultimate control when it comes to that. Fortunately, people are, Facebook Live is still being shown on the web browser. People were able to, using various extensions, download those videos. But you can see, with extensions like, and yeah, you can go to websites, I guess, to some degree to do that too. Like KeepVid, right? But like, this is interesting. Google Chrome, the most popular web browser in the world, apparently, doesn't allow you to install extensions on the web browser that allow you to download, say, YouTube videos. Now, I mean, and this is the problem, is that, again, all of these systems are becoming closed gardens. They're all taking more and more control over what you can do and what you can do and what you can do with it. And when that happens, the ability to, show, to highlight these things, like what happened in the incredibly tragic case with Castile, those opportunities, that ability is going to disappear and go away. But also, again, my second point is that even when you record it, even when you do it, yeah, everybody gets to see it, but don't think that somehow it's going to really end up with, people getting, with consequences being done against the perpetrators, against the criminals in the situation, which in this case was the police. Police were absolute criminals in this. This is terrible what happened. Disgusting. I mean, and, it's disgusting. Honestly, like, to some degree, I think it is the nature of the idea of police in and of itself. I mean, it's getting crazy out there. I'll definitely tell you that. Like, nothing is necessarily new, but now what's happening is that because people are recording stuff, now I think the police are starting to feel like that there's a war against the police. This is strange times. Hey, wow. All right. I want to tell you about something. A little break here. I want to tell you where you can get your hands on something that Facebook certainly doesn't control. And that is gold and silver, platinum, palladium, all of it. Get your hands on some of this stuff. It's a great way to store your wealth. And hey, if you're into Bitcoin, another wonderful thing that fortunately Facebook does not control at this time, you can get your hands on it with Bitcoin. I want you to go to Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. Okay. Gold.zog.ninja. All right. That's the URL you can go to, or you can go to rrbi.co. Let them know that the Golden Stallion sent you. Believe me, they know who you're talking about. Okay. They are listeners of this show. And in fact, I want to say thank you to Roberts & Roberts Brokerage, because they recently re-upped as sponsors of Sovryn Tech. So they are, if you want to help out the show, if you want to say thank you to people that are making the show go round and round, go buy some gold and silver from Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. They are one of the best companies in the business. They've been around for decades. Tim Fry, the owner, is just top notch. Okay. And they are Bitcoin preferred. They want to do business with you if you have Bitcoin. Why wouldn't they? All right. So, I mean, and where else can you go for that? I mean, it's a fantastic business. So if you want to get your hands on some real cold storage of wealth, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage, go get yourself some gold and silver, jump on it. Let them know that the Golden Stallion sent you. Gold.zog.ninja. Let's get back to the show.
Pixel, I'm being chased by assassin bots. I need an exit. Pixel!
Boy and Sovryn, come with me if you want to leave.
Who are you?
I'm Adelaide. I'll tell you more later. Get in the vehicle.
Get in a car with a scantily clad and beautiful woman? Guess it's been my first choice before. Let's go.
First choice.
It is time for First Choice, where I cover the stories that get sent in to me through the various channels available. Of course, go to contact.zog.ninja and you'll find all the ways that information gets sent in. You can send me questions, emails, stories and all of this. And this is one, actually, I got this through somebody on Twitter. They DM'd me, which is also a potential thing to do. And this relates to very much, because it all happened in a very short period of time between, and some people say was direct, depending on, okay, with some of these stories, you can get really conspiratorial. All right. I was mentioning at the end that now the police think that there is a war on against them. Some people would say that what happened is in Dallas, there was a rally, a Black Lives Matter rally happening. And in response to what happened with Castile and, at least to some degree, and a sniper killed, I believe it was 5 cops and injured another, maybe some others. And this is what bolsters, kind of the police's belief that there is a war against them, going on. Now, some people want to make the claim that, this is all a setup. The shooter, the sniper, who I believe is dead. Who is dead now. The sniper was, it was all set up, by the police themselves, all to increase the police state and all that stuff. Look, I'm not going to get into any of those conspiracies. They're not even necessary because the reality is out in plain sight here, and to some degree being reported upon. So you don't even need to go into any kind of conspiracy theory around all of this. There is, one aspect of this, of what happened there. I'm going to read from the Huffington Post, this story that is very new. There, out of all of this, out of Castile and what happened with the Dallas shooter, there is something very, very unique that happened in the United States, that I think needs to be talked about, and the listener sent it in, so I'm going to talk about it. Here's from the Huffington Post. This is the robot Dallas police used to kill shooting suspect. Major ethical questions remain. And so what happened is, because I don't recall if the story exactly gets into it. Here it is. All right, I'm going to read the story. It does break into it. The Dallas Police Department revealed new details Monday about, and this is from, the story is also, I believe, from July 11th. Okay, so this is from July 11th. That was the robot that was used to kill the suspect in a shooting rampage last week. Police tweeted that the robot was a Remotech Andros Mark VA1 and not a Model F5 as previously reported. And you can see a picture of this robot. I'll describe it more in detail in a minute. The robot was used to dispatch a suspect who opened fire during a Black Lives Matter protest in Dallas, killing 5 officers and injuring several more. The unit is supposed to be used for bomb disposal, though it was harnessed by police last week to deliver an explosive instead. While the decision kept officers out of harm's way, some wondered about the implications of police deploying high-tech weapons without oversight. The Andros Mark VA1, which is made by military tech company Northrop Grumman, contains a surveillance camera and an extendable arm with a rotatable gripper. It's controlled wirelessly and can climb upstairs. In this case, it used its gripper to deliver a C4 explosive, which police detonated to kill the suspect. A non-lethal option may not have been possible, said Dr. Robert Lattice, a retired Major General of the United States Air Force who now serves as a technology expert at the University of Notre Dame. Quote, given lots of time, which they did not have, and resources, the police probably could have disabled the shooter, end quote, Lattice told the Huffington Post via email. Quote, remember, though, they were in the midst of what would have been a combat situation. While the action they took was admittedly different and will generate much discussion, I do not see it any differently than if a police marksman had been able to shoot the perpetrator from a distance, end quote, he added. In a sense, the Mark VA1 is a tool like any other. It isn't some artificially intelligent killbot like the Terminator. But Ayla Nurkembach, oh boy, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, a professor of robotics at Carnegie Mellon University, warns that ignoring the greater implication of this technology's deployment could be disastrous. Quote, future such robots will have only more bells and whistles, all of which provide the affordance for a whole array of ways in which the robot can perform activities never dreamt of by the engineers or by the purchasing agents who chose to equip the police department with them. This takes us to a wild west where sophisticated machines unleash the creative potential of the users, end quote. There are ethical concerns, he added. Quote, there are no laws, guidelines, or oversight processes for killing with a bomb disposal bot, end quote. The robot was used by Dallas police in a different way than intended. As robots become more advanced, Nurkembach argued, the gap between that original design and actual function will widen. which could lead to problems. We see this everywhere in developing technology. Consider your smartphone. When you bought it even just a couple of years ago, there may not have been an easy way to keep law enforcement from prying into your messages if you became a criminal suspect. Now, secure messaging apps are everywhere, potentially transforming your phone into a device with significantly more advanced capabilities than what you paid for. Apply that logic to heavy machinery that can be outfitted with weapons, and you might understand what all of the concern is about. Now, I want to be clear here. I appreciate that Huffington Post wasn't writing this off, because a lot of people, especially in tech circles and the tech world, tech journalism and all that, were writing this off, following the line of what that ex major general said, that this is no different than if there was a police marksman taking the shot. If there was a human there, because, it's just a tool. A human was ultimately in control, blah, 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 blah. I completely disagree with that assessment, that means that there is nothing to worry about, or that these robots are just a tool. I totally disagree. Now, to give you a little bit of a descriptor, of course, you can go to the show notes for episode 184 of Sovryn Tech, and you'll see a picture of the robot there, what is it again? The VA1. And I mean, it looks like, if you ever saw Stargate, if you remember the MERPs or whatever that they would, the probe that they would send through the Stargate, kind of looks like that. It has treads, it has tracks, and I imagine those treads, like a tank, they can retract. It's roughly the size of a person, can retract so that it allows it to climb stairs and all of this. And it has like a little gripper arm that you can see, and you can imagine how it, delivered the explosive. Now, the issue with all of this, again, no need to get into, full on conspiracy theories of any kind to discuss this. It's just all of that is somewhat irrelevant, I think. Now, I mean, first out of the gate, the Dallas shooter doing what they did, look, violence is, lethal violence is not the solution to any of this, to any of what's going on, to any of the problems we've described so far in this show. Okay, straight up. And I don't agree with the use of lethal violence ever on another human being whatsoever. All right, I've made that position clear many times on the show. The issue here is that this is the first time that a robot was used by domestic police forces, by domestic forces to kill another American. Okay, I'm an anarchist. I don't even need to get into the whole nationality thing. All right, doing this sort of thing with these kind of robots is incredibly commonplace around the world in military situations. With the U.S. military, they use it to do this sort of stuff all the time. The unique point is that it's being done on U.S. soil. Absolutely, it is the ramping up, the militarization of the police we talked about a few months ago on Sovryn Tech, where now we know police departments are using predator drones. They're using drones to do law enforcement, to spy on quote unquote citizens and all of this, right? I mean, and that's crazy. Like I am mind blown that no one sees a problem with that. And also, like I said, I don't agree with lethal force being used in any way. That includes against the police. It's a tragedy of all the people that were injured and died in all of these situations. It's just a gigantic tragedy. Okay. I just want to be super clear on that. I do not relish. I do not, enjoy hearing about people dying ever. So yes, police are using this sort of thing. Now, I think there's some people who, even people that would agree with me that, yeah, government shouldn't exist. Police forces maybe even shouldn't exist. It would be great if we could all have our own little robot defenders. If we could all have our own, Northrop Grumman, designed robots that could protect us and blah, 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 and kill a potential, attacker or, bad actor or whatever. Okay. Wow. I so disagree with that too. Any way you look at this, I think when you mechanize, when you make more simple, when you make things more push button, when you remove the human more and more from the act of killing, or even from necessarily the act of defense, This is the same problem I have with, I have this issue with military using this stuff in the same way. I have this issue with military, military using drones, to off people and do double taps and all these terrible things. Okay. I have a problem with all of that. Again, I don't want to use violence in any way, shape, or, I'm not into that. All right. But I think there is a very serious ethical problem that people are forgetting in all of this. And that is that when you remove the human element, a human was still controlling, had a little RC Pro-Am controller, whatever that was, I'm sure maybe he even thought it was fun, and clever to drop the bomb on this guy, and without him perhaps realizing it or whatever. Which I'm curious about that too, how exactly that all shaped up. How did the guy not see this robot coming? But maybe there's parts of the story that I'm missing. Regardless, that doesn't change the point I want to bring up. The point I want to bring up to you is that when you remove the human element from all this, you lose the reasons, you lose the element of why you don't go into war, why you don't want to kill people, why death is not okay. You forget that it is ugly business when suddenly robots are doing it for you, and when it becomes a push-button affair, and when it becomes a remote affair, a wireless affair. I know. I've killed people. I know what it feels like to look at them and what it does to you inside, personally. And it's not good. It doesn't feel right because the action's not right, and you know it instinctively. Having robots do this stuff to save, at least we didn't have to endanger an officer going after this guy. No, maybe if everything's so goddamn dangerous, maybe it's because the problem isn't, the whole situation that's going on. Maybe the problem's you. Maybe the problem is your job. Maybe the problem is your institution. If it doesn't feel right, that's your instincts telling you, I shouldn't be doing this. And when you remove those human instincts, when you remove that human element, like I said, and if I sound like a broken record, good, break this fucking record. Back and forth, and keep playing it. When you remove that element from it, you lose the reason to not do this stuff in the first place. Yes, this is a problem. This is a big deal. That robots are now being used practically willy-nilly, regardless of, and that's the other thing too. I know I've hung out with engineers. I know the deal. And a lot of these guys would, so many of them would say, oh yeah, this is great. We can save lives by sending in robots to dispose of bombs. This is a very good thing. And I'll tell you something. I agree with that. I think that's wonderful that there are robots that can disable bombs. Fantastic. Let's develop that. I bet if you told those same engineers, those same scientists, this is what your technology, what you developed is going to end up getting used for, I think they'd have some serious problems with that. I think they would say, wait a minute. Now, not Northrop Grumman because they're part of the war machine, but I think a lot of people would say, hold on, I didn't develop the Roomba so that you can use it to drop a bomb on somebody or to, drop an explosive. I really think they'd have an issue with that. Well, that's the nature of tools. They can be used for good or bad, right? That's for sure. But boy, I'm telling you, this is not okay. And I want to hit on this too. I don't give a shit if it's government, whatever. I don't agree. If you feel a need to defend yourself, if you feel a need, to do whatever's going on for you, some terrible situation. Yeah, I don't, no matter what, governments, police, whatever, I think removing the human element is really, really dangerous, because you forget why you don't do those sorts of things in the first place. That goes both ways for the attacker and the defender. This is scary, and eventually, you're going to, some degree of AI is probably going to get put into these things. And it's so funny because I try not to bring up Skynet or the Terminator scenario and all of this. because people instantly, it's like bringing up Nazis, and people say, it's like, oh, well, you lost the argument. You brought up Skynet, or you brought up Terminators and all that stuff. And for years, anytime that I would, and other tech journalists, I know they go through the same thing. They get insulted saying, look, it's just a movie. It ain't just a movie anymore. Do you need more proof? Also, there's a human in charge of it right now. Well, that's nice right now. Even then, how's this going to go? What was that story from Nightscope? We covered Nightscope's, they have these things. They look like Daleks walking around in malls. The damn thing ran over a toddler. Now, was it an accident? Are these the growing pains of new technologies? Yep. I think there's a lot of truth to all of that stuff. Okay. But that is, again, this falls under the danger. When you remove the human element, these are the things that happen. And also, it centralizes the ability to deploy force. And that becomes an even greater problem, especially when you have governments, because what's going to happen is that eventually one day, even speaking of President Obama, who, he feels so bad about these deaths. You're talking about the guy who got caught on camera saying, I'm really good at killing people. He meant that because, he can just command and suddenly drones just fly out from everywhere and other robots fly out from everywhere and do his bidding for him. It's going to get to the point where the people in charge, they don't even need a military anymore. They're just going to have robots. And yes, it's starting now. And yes, it will get used on you as a United States citizen. That was the other part, right? Is say, I know we got to use it overseas because it's really dangerous over there. But don't worry, it'll never get used here. Bullshit! Bullshit! It just got used on you, Daddy. Yeah, I don't like the fact that there was a guy shooting people and that there was an attacker, but it got used on you. Oh, enough of this. I'll be back with more. This is Sovryn Tech. We'll calm it down. Any and all technologies can and will be used against you. That really should be a new police mantra. What I want to tell you about here is that, because so many people, I'm not concerned about my privacy. I'm not worried about my privacy, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to get used against me like that. Okay, whatever. Clearly, technologies will get used against you. But what I want to bring up to you is, if you are concerned about your privacy, if you all these kinds of things, all the scary stuff maybe that you're worried about with technology, I want you to contact me. Sovryn Tech Solutions. You can hire me. I will be your cybersecurity consultant. We can cover all this stuff. I'm here for it. You can hire me, baby. So go to contact.zog.ninja. Hire me, Sovryn Tech Solutions. Believe me, today, this kind of stuff for individuals, you don't have to be a company. You don't have to be an organization or even, some kind of small business or something. You could just be an individual that wants to take your tech life seriously. Contact me for Sovryn Tech Solutions. Contact.zog.ninja. All right, let's get back to Sovryn Tech.
Whoa, hey, you want to slow down?
I don't do slow. I move fast.
Okay, well, so you're French.
Everyone in the future speaks French.
Wait. The future?
From 2099. Permanent Autonomous Zone, Osiris-1. You've been there.
Oh, this isn't happening. It only thinks it's happening. How do I know you're from Osiris-1?
RGP fingerprint Omega 746566666.
Okay, you're legit. Hey, really, be careful. You drive like you're playing a video game.
That is how you programmed me. Game Talk.
It is time for Game Talk, where we cover issues of games. And this week, we're actually in a very unique situation because, the world is alight talking about Pokemon Go. This is, and I actually briefly mentioned it last week during the opening of the episode. And it was, I tried it out. Honestly, as far as Pokemon games go, particularly, it sucks. I get it. I understand why it's popular. I understand why people like it. I understand why they enjoy it. I get all of that. I totally get it. I understand why it's so, why it's such a taking the world by storm right now, blah, blah, blah. I know. I'm just saying that if you, but we have a lot to talk about in this, okay? Because, people are going kind of crazy, really crazy about this app, either positive or negative. I'm just saying that in the grand scheme, if if you asked me, okay, you want to play a Pokemon game? Would you like to play Pokemon Go, or would you like to play, Pokemon Sun and Moon? Give me Pokemon Sun and Moon right now. Like, that's not, hell, I'd rather play Pokemon Yellow than play Pokemon Go. All right. I mean, they're not, it's night and day as far as like how enjoyable the games are. And to some degree, value is subjective. I understand that, taste is subjective, right? But whatever. I don't even think it's that great of game, and that great a game. And games of its ilk, like augmented reality inspired or totally augmented reality games, will, there'll be better ones that'll come down the line. I don't doubt that for a second. So, and this is a game, if you don't know what Pokemon Go is, it is a game where you use your smartphone and you use its GPS and whatever, and it allows you to find Pokemon in various places. And they are being very particular. We'll talk more about this here in a minute, but they're being very particular where Pokemon show up. Like a lot of them are showing up at post offices or things like this. It's very similar to Ingress, which I talked about Ingress before, which that I firmly believe was all about just gamifying people's willingness to improve Google Maps. That's because Niantic, the company that makes both Ingress and Pokemon Go, it was a part of Google. It's also part of other things, and we'll get into that. But yeah, you go around and you catch Pokemon with a Pokeball. It all gets done. There's no real Pokemon anywhere. It all gets done in quote unquote augmented reality. It all happens on your screen. But some people have a bit of a different take on this. Some people think that maybe this is all real and that maybe it being at churches is a problem. I want you to listen to this audio. It's a few minutes. Here we go.
These Pokemon creatures are like virtual cyber demons.
Yes, digital demons.
Digital demons. Now, so this is where this starts to get weird. If it's not weird yet, it's going to get weird. So this morning, Doc and Edward and I are in an editorial meeting. We're talking about the topics for today's program. And Pokemon Go was one of the topics.
Right.
Now, this is before the police officers showed up.
Right.
We're talking about Pokemon Go. And Edward and Doc said, Rick, we're gonna present to you a really far out idea about Pokemon Go. What if this technology is transferred to Islamic jihadists? And Islamic jihadists have an app that shows them where Christians are located geographically.
Now, you may say, well, how is that possible? Okay, but there's a reason why we ask that.
Yes.
Because the game itself reveals something, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. So after the police officer told us that this man that we saw Friday on our property riding around our building holding his phone.
A grown man.
40-year-old man on a four-wheeler riding around our building suspiciously, holding his phone up like he's photographing our building. Then the police officer comes back and tells us, look, I solved the case. He was playing Pokemon Go. Now, this is why in the office today we all did a triple take looking at each other, because the theory that Doc and Edward presented to me this morning before the police officer came here was, what if we find out that Pokemon Go is primarily, the demons are primarily being located inside churches? Well, guess what? They downloaded an app in our office. We stood here and I watched them do it. They downloaded the Pokemon Go app. And lo and behold, there is the True News office. There's the outline of our building. There shows you see where it would be exit doors, windows, and inside the True News building was a virtual cyber demon. And what this man, Friday, was trying to find was the Pokemon demon that had been placed inside the True News office.
Now, you may say, okay, so you found one, but why is it significant about somebody else getting this information?
because if this technology was in the hands of the wrong people,
Right.
and you designated all the churches,
Mm-hmm.
and you could even take it so far as the homes of the pastors, the elders, the deacons, the Sunday school teachers,
Right.
the youth pastors, you could have a phone with an app that would lead you to the physical locations of these strong Christian leaders.
And what we found was startling about where these Pokemon congregate.
So Edward and another employee jumped in their vehicle and took off. I said, go check it out in Vero Beach. Edward, you were gone for a couple hours. Tell us what you found. This is Vero Beach today. What did you find?
Well, we found the churches in our area were all portals. They were points, rally points, where you could go put down a bot bait, or basically this is where you can go to find and capture these demons. It's on the app. The app will lead you to that church.
When you drive around Vero Beach, Florida, with your Pokemon Go app open, are you telling me that the cyber demons that have been placed by this game in Vero Beach, that they are primarily located in Vero Beach churches?
Yes, the ones I found were in churches, hospitals or medical facilities, and malls.
Hospitals, shopping malls, and churches.
Right.
And we weren't the only ones to find this. The original tip we got was that 70% of the actual locations where these rally points are located are churches. There's actually a big joke going right now on these tech forums of mostly secular atheists, folks that are into this kind of thing, and they're joking. Well, look, the app is bringing people to church.
Okay, I see two things here. Number one, the enemy, Satan, is targeting churches with virtual digital cyber demons. Now, you may say, well, it's a make-believe object.
Well,
listen,
it's believable enough to got a 40-year-old man on a four-wheeler driving around looking for one.
And most likely he would have come in this building had a door opened up. See, we've talked to locations where people have gone into churches looking for these demons.
Yes. Yeah.
They're going into the churches looking for this Pokemon cyber demons.
And in case you guys are thinking we're just making this up, there are articles in mainstream media that say that churches are rallying points for Pokemon Go.
I would tell you this: if you should download the Pokemon Go app. I wouldn't keep it. I believe this thing is a magnet for demonic powers. Drive around your city and see where the Pokemon demons are located. You will find that they're in the churches.
A magnet for demonic powers. Pokemon Go. That was Pastor Rick Wiles. They have True News Media, whatever, something like that. I put a link in the show notes if you want to hear the whole thing. I wouldn't want you to think I took it out of context or anything, because believe me, I didn't. It's just as crazy as it sounds. And I want to take a moment to apologize really to Sovereign Tech listeners, because I like to think that I've said this in the past, that there's no way Christians are dumb enough to think that like the Starbucks red cup is somehow satanic or something like that. I guess that's just not so. I mean, if you're going to believe, I mean, it's hilarious they're calling Pokemon demons. Okay. But if you're going to believe that Pokemon are cyber demons and it's demonic forces and all this, oh boy. Now, admittedly, that has not stopped others from demonizing. I mean, it is true. What they're saying is true, that yes, churches do seem to be a popular place for Pokemon to be. But there's lots of different places where it's popular for Pokemon to be set up. And other people are also setting it up with bait and all this stuff. Military bases are also popular. I mean, there's tons of things. It's not just churches. So I mean, The fallacies ran rampant, obviously, in that audio. But that's how ridiculous some people are being. And I think I want to say that I'm going to read another story here, and this is from the Corbett Report, which I generally don't look at his work, but I want to highlight this because I think a lot of people in my circles, privacy, advocates and all this, and anarchists and whatever, and libertarians, and even people beyond that, that they really, they're kind of getting into this mode to where they really see Pokemon Go as being, the second coming of the Patriot Act in a way it is the natural fruition of a surveillance society. So I'm going to read this here and then I want to comment on it. Here it is from James Corbett himself, July 13th, 2006. The CIA's Pokemon Go app is doing what the Patriot Act can't. Now, right from that title, they're telling you that Pokemon Go was created. They're inferring, they're suggesting that the CIA created Pokemon Go. Let's read some of this. Privacy advocates, that's establishment speak for normal human beings, celebrated earlier this week as the House rejected yet another attempt to expand the Patriot Act's, blah, blah, blah. So the Patriot Act didn't expand. So I'll cut ahead. But don't breathe, reading on, that sigh too deeply, because exactly as the threat to privacy was being extinguished, that being the Patriot Act, another one was rising to take its place. It goes by the name of Pokemon Go, and it is a so-called augmented reality game that allows users to capture, train, and battle virtual Pokemon by chasing them around through real-world environments with your smartphone. Full disclosure, although I live in the land of anime and video games, I have never played any Pokemon games, watched any of the shows, read any of the comics, blah, blah, blah. So he's never messed with it. To put into perspective just how popular this game is, it topped the App Store's top grossing category within 24 hours of its release. Now, just 1 week out, it has been downloaded an estimated 7.5 million times in the US alone, and is generating an estimated $1.6 million a day for Nintendo. But here's the truly mind-boggling part. In just the first 2 days trading after the game's release, Nintendo's market value rose a staggering $7.5 billion. That's right, folks. This is not merely a game. It is a phenomenon. Stallion breaking in, those numbers are totally accurate. Yes, this is a phenomenon. I agree. I think it's actually higher than that. It's like 9 billion now, or an extra 9 billion is what Nintendo had been valuated at. For those unfamiliar with augmented reality gaming, it's a type of game where one tracks virtual characters or objects that appear on their smartphones through real world environments. I'm going to skip ahead here for time. It is also prompting, they're talking about how a lot of people are playing it, but it is also prompting heists, violence, hoaxes, and hysteria. On the more innocuous side, some restaurants and businesses are already trying to cash in on their proximity to spots with a lot of in-game activity. Also, Stallion breaking in, they are now, I think, Niantic and / the Pokemon Company / Nintendo are also allowing companies to purchase sponsored spots, temporary sponsored spots for Pokemon to show up quite a bit. And, so this is being turned into an advertising technique, no question there. Reading on the less innocuous side, robbers are now using lures, which attract Pokemon to a certain spot to lure gamers in to be mugged. This is true. One 19-year-old hunting for a water Pokemon in a rural river ended up uncovering a dead body. This is true. And also, actually, I think yesterday, Stallion breaking in, another dead body was found. By people playing Pokemon Go. One IT executive got fired from his job after an online Facebook tirade inspired by frustration at the game, and one YouTuber who was live streaming the game while out Ubering allegedly saw someone get murdered right in front of him, but that turned out to be a hoax. If you're wondering what's going on here, you're not the only one. It seems the internet is flipping its collective lid over this app as the line between gaming and the real world gets blurrier. But perhaps all of this pales in comparison to the game's terms and conditions. Firstly, the app requires an excessive amount of permissions on a user's device, including the ability to read your contacts, find accounts on your device, and access your camera. The app even requires full access to a user's Google account, which it can then use to read your emails, send emails from your account, browse your Google Drive documents and photos, etc. But apparently that was just a quote-unquote mistake and will be corrected soon. Stallion breaking in. Yeah, this was because there's two ways to log into the app. You could do it with a Pokemon Trainers Club account, which good luck getting one of those now. I've had one for years, so I use that obviously to log in because I don't ride bandwagons. You know, I know when something's cool. Anyway, the other way to do it was with a Google Plus account. And I don't know if I said it last week, but I never recommended anybody log in with Google Plus account because, again, that's just centralizing more data to Google. And it ended up that at least on iPhones, it was reported this week, and supposedly they fixed this already. But on iPhones, the permissions that that the Pokemon Go app was asking for, like, gave them every ounce of your Google account. Which, how much data do you have on that? So that was a real concern. And it really highlights for me, the importance of like not having centralized identity. I mean, because this is what happens. But reading on, secondly, the game's privacy policy contains such gems as, quote, we may disclose any information about you or your authorized child that is in our possession or control to government or law enforcement officials or private parties, end quote. What could go wrong? But wait, it gets worse. The maker of the app, Niantic Labs, never heard of them? That's because until last year, they were an internal startup of none other than Google, the NSA-linked Big Brother company. So, Stallion breaking in, I'll stop right there for a second. Okay, a lot of people debate whether or not Google is an arm of the state and whether or not they've worked, joyfully with the government or the NSA or whatever. I am definitely, this is one aspect of this I'll agree with James Corbett on. I do think that Google willfully works with governments on all kinds of things. But anyway, let's read on here. Even now, Google remains one of Niantic's major backers because, again, Niantic, when Google became Alphabet, Niantic got spun out of Alphabet. So it's not a part of Alphabet, even though, I'm still not sure, how much control Google has over the whole situation. Niantic was founded by John Hanke, who also founded Keyhole Inc., the mapping company from which was created with seed money from In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital arm, and which was eventually rolled into Google Maps. This is why. So Corbett, I think, he's getting something wrong here, because as I understand it, Niantic was a company previously to Google, and then Google bought them up to, put in In-Q-Tel and all this, I agree with that assessment that it's In-Q-Tel, and then that became Keyhole, and Keyhole became Niantic, and Niantic was bought out by Google, and Google wanted it for all of their mapping stuff. And that was the point, like I said, as I've said ever since Ingress first came out, this is just an app to improve Google Maps by getting people to walk around and effectively be Google cars, albeit gamified, and albeit as, walking people. So I get that. Now let's read on. So yes, the Pokemon game currently taking the internet by storm and scooping up all of their data, including activities, movements, and communications, was created by a CIA-linked businessman who gestated his company at Google. Feeling safe yet? As it turns out, the Big Brother spies of the NSA and the DHS and the CIA don't really need their Patriot Act powers. After all, the powers that shouldn't be need to do is create a fun, shiny trinket for the people to play with, and they will literally pay for their own surveillance. Welcome to the quote-unquote matrix economy, where people pay to spy on themselves and have fun doing it. Huxley would be proud. Okay. Now, I get it. I totally understand the point that he's bringing up. In fact, other people have, I've shared articles around the idea this is all a CIA psyop, the whole thing. A lot of the details that are being said here, I think, are true. However, I personally think people are being a little disingenuous and a little ridiculous. And I'll tell you why. Because if you are worried about this level of lack of privacy, I guarantee you, well, actually, this is true. Where were most people sharing? Where was this story getting shared? Where are a lot of people complaining about Pokemon Go, even from a privacy aspect and all that? They're doing it on Facebook. If you're that worried about your privacy, I call it pot kettle black on you. What are you doing complaining about Pokemon Go when you have a Facebook account? That's just as bad, especially if you have the Facebook app on your phone, because that has all, we already talked about this, that has all the permissions, even more than Pokemon Go has. You're full of shit. You are full of shit if you are complaining about privacy in Pokemon Go and you have a Facebook account, and particularly using the Facebook app. or Messenger even. You're kidding me. I don't, for whatever reason, I don't feel like Ingress was all about necessarily surveillance. I think there was an ulterior motive behind it. I don't know that Pokemon Go is about surveillance. Please, if you are concerned about privacy, by all means, do not install this. I agree with that 100%. Do not play it. I am on board with that. But I don't necessarily see it that way, that was the intent. Will it get used that way? Yeah, probably. And yeah, I mean, look, the game kind of sucks. Like, I get it why people are playing it. There's some advantages to it. I'm glad people are getting up, getting off their asses and whatever and going outside and all this. I mean, all of that's wonderful. But the game kind of sucks. But God, some of the shit about this, like, there's so many people complaining about, what is this? You're 40 years old and you're out there playing Pokemon and all this stuff. I mean, they even talked about it in that audio we played earlier from those Christians. Okay. It's like, so what? How is it my problem that you didn't get out of your childhood with your childhood wonder intact? I'm sorry you lost your imagination. Really, I think that is such shit to say, well, you're not a man if you're playing Pokemon Go, or all this. Are you kidding? No, you might be more of a man because you are obviously still able to be creative, to have fun, and to be imaginative. What a bunch of shit. I mean, like I said, the game, I don't care about the game. I don't give a shit. In fact, we knew Pokemon Go was coming out like a year and a half ago, and I told you it was going to be huge because I got it. Like this is the way that you do Pokemon. I think the implementation sucks, and clearly, like, Nintendo is being very, very careful to at least let you know they didn't design it, because again, it is a very rough experience in my opinion. And the server problems are crazy. I mean, there's a whole slew of problems here. Okay. Privacy, but what are you people complaining about with this? Because, like, I remember I've had plenty of conversations with, anarchist libertarians and all this stuff. And they've said that, they don't care. Fine. Okay. They're taking my privacy. I don't care. I'll move on. Okay. Then that's how you feel about it. So shut up about, being concerned about the privacy aspect of this. Like, I'm just seeing so much hypocrisy here in every way. And I definitely, the hypocrisy over, what you use normally day to day, and then complaining about people using Pokemon Go. It's a double standard. That's ridiculous. And then I definitely don't agree with the idea that grown-ups shouldn't be playing this shit. That's moronic. So anyway, and as far as I hope I don't have to debunk that whole nonsense about cyber demons. I played that audio from Rick Wiles because I wanted you to see just how crazy people are getting, over this. Like, what levels? I mean, there's real concerns to be had here, but people are jumping to ones either where they're having blind spots and double standards. It's crazy.
Tonight, Knight Rider crashes into your living room.
I don't believe this.
Well, you'd better believe it. A lone crusader for justice drives this crime crasher.
The world's most fantastic car.
And together they can do just about anything.
After all, we're only human.
Don't press your luck.
And now, buckle up for action with the fastest show on television, Knight Rider.
See Knight Rider online today. And now back to Sovryn Tech. Pixel says it should be this panel.
We need to hack into the control center to shut down all of those assassin bots.
Well, you're the android. Can't you just jack in?
Oui, but the way I connect is more like a jack off.
Was that a joke?
Hacking is no joke.
Directly connecting certainly beats doing it with the keyboard.
You're notorious for your love of cyber sex.
Okay, now that was a joke. Just get hacking.
A quick hack solves everything. Hacksec.
It is time for Hacksec, where I talk issues of hacking and security. There's something I want to tell you about, but then I want to dovetail real quick on that Pokemon Go thing, because there's another interesting announcement that Nintendo made, and this kind of bolsters the fact that Nintendo did not design Pokemon Go or did not back Pokemon Go to increase the surveillance state. Even though, is that what it can get used for and what it will get used for and all this stuff? Certainly. In fact, I think really like Pokemon Go is a lot of research needs to be done on this, because we are seeing what a privatized surveillance society looks like and what, how that shapes up and what that allows for. It's very, very interesting. From an academic sense, I think it needs a lot of research. Again, the game really, really kind of stinks. But so to bolster my point about Nintendo, they announced this week that in November of 2016, they are going to release for $60. They are releasing a mini NES, a mini Nintendo, from back in 87, all that. And it'll have 30 games on it. And here's the thing. It's like the size of the palm of your hand. It's literally mini, and it has the original controllers, all that. All that I think that's just wonderful. And the games on it, I mean, it's a who's who. You can check out the list. I mean, all the Mario Brothers, all the Zeldas, Metroid, Tecmo Bowl, even, that's a classic, all that stuff. But, they're releasing it. The thing does not connect to the internet. It has practically no ports. Like, everybody's going to want one of these, and people are already, pre-ordering them in droves. It would have been so easy to just slap a camera on that goddamn thing. And they could bolster the surveillance state, and maybe, whatever government agency would give them a little rebate, as it were, for doing so. But no, this is actually, for me, it's kind of a dream machine, because it's, it's what I've wanted, a machine that doesn't connect to the internet. It just, all it has is the games on. I mean, I wish it still took cartridges, but it doesn't. But I mean, it's great. So that's the thing. Like, if if Nintendo was all in on embracing surveillance and all this stuff, and let's increase the power of the government and all that shit, I think this device itself, which is going to sell like crazy, would be very, very different. And it's not. So, all right, the other thing I was going to tell you about, there's a documentary out there called 0 Days. It just came out. I will talk more about it next week. It's great. Check it out. It's about Stuxnet.
The reviews are in, and Babylon 5's a winner. The New York Daily News says Babylon 5 could make Star Wars look like a walk in the park. The Chicago Sun-Times calls it a welcome addition to the sci-fi universe. Impressive, perfectly scaled for TV, raves the LA Times. And the Kansas City Star says Babylon 5 is one space station you're likely to want to visit frequently. See for yourself what everyone's talking about on Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5.
Adelaide, why are we stopping?
In the future, we have a custom.
What's the custom?
After a successful mission, a team usually is love, a ménage à trois, or orgy.
Yeah, there's only 2 of us.
I already contacted the others to come join us. I love women too.
Whoa, Adelaide, you're beautiful, but you're an android.
I am fully functional. I am programmed in multiple techniques, a broad variety of...
Wow, I guess so. You did say you move fast. Adelaide, the future is going to be so good.
The climax.
It is time for the climax, where I can talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. And I have a little bit of a shortened one here because we're going to keep the show tight at 2 hours. So I want to break right into it. I want to review for you, because again, I can talk about anything, movies, comic books, novels, whatever. I want to talk to you about a movie. I want to review for you Independence Day. And this is the only spoiler alert you're getting. That's it. If you're hearing it after the fact, too bad. And I don't really care if you get spoiled. I just... Yeah, you can't hold my tongue hostage. I'm sorry. Anyway, Independence Day Resurgence. This is a movie. It is widely right now being considered a flop. It did $310 million box office so far. I think it's in its 3rd week after release. And as far as local theaters I've seen, it's already been removed to make way for Ghostbusters and of course Star Trek Beyond comes out next week and all this. So Yeah, not, I mean, 310 million is nothing to sneeze at, but it's not like the expected. I mean, I think they were looking for, because the first Independence Day that came out in 96, came out 20 years ago, was one of the biggest movies of all time. I mean, it was a phenomenon. It was huge. And they were expecting that, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And so I want to get into the review of this because honestly, like a lot of people didn't like it. And then there were people who said, you just got to turn your brain off and it's actually pretty good. It's just standard kind of disaster fare and all that. Personally, I thought it was fine. I thought it was actually really good. So some of the complaints about it are the acting that Jeff Goldblum as David Levinson didn't do a great job of acting. He acted like Jeff Goldblum and not David Levinson. I agree with that. The dialogue in the movie, etc. Now, be clear, I'm talking about the movie itself right this second. The way that the movie kind of paced and laid out a lot of stuff didn't do a very good job on that end of things. And you're probably wondering, how can I say this is a good movie if I'm making these claims? Bear with me. They also dropped the ball on, so I agree with those assessments. Nobody complained about the effects. The effects were amazing. I had already said previously on Sovryn Tech and maybe on Sex and Science Hour, that, I listened to the score about a month ago to the soundtrack, and I thought that was disappointing. So I agree that was disappointing. But they dropped the ball on, there's an event where when the main alien ship arrives, there's a second alien ship, which is the good guys. Told you, spoilers. When the main good ship arrives, it arrives next to Saturn and it wipes out one of Saturn's moons. And I was thinking, and I knew that the story point was there, and I was like, holy shit, if they're going to show that on screen, that is going to be amazing, because you would see Saturn's rings get sucked up and all this different stuff. It's like, it'd be way more exciting than watching, Big Ben or whatever, any of these other things topple, blah, 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 blah. It would be wild to see an entire moon get destroyed, right? And they totally skipped it in the movie. You barely see it in the opening credits. You see it for a second. Like it references that event happens. You see nothing of it. And I was like, oh, you dropped the ball. That was going to be the highlight of the whole thing, is that you opened the movie up, this disaster porn. You opened it up with a moon getting destroyed, a moon of Saturn, because there's a human base there. Right. And oh man. So they definitely dropped that. So, but this is where I think things were pretty good. Again, the acting, I mean, most of the act, like the Hemsworth guy there that played Jake Morrison, he did fine. A lot of the actors did all right. But so I listened to the book. I listened to the audiobook, almost 2 months ago. It was like the beginning of May, I think, maybe when I first listened. I don't remember when it was, but it was long before I saw the film. I listened to the audiobook, and I also read the prequel book, Crucible, which there's an audiobook of that out now too. At the time there was not an audiobook, but I read the book and I listened to the novelization of Independence Day, Resurgence, which we shortened to IDR, just like Independence Day was ID4. This is IDR. And IDR, like the novelization was great. Like the story was really good. And with the book, like many things, you can kind of picture the acting in your own mind. Like you can picture the lines being delivered by Jeff Goldblum being done in a David Levinson-esque fashion, right? So that makes it better. And so this was, so what's disappointing is, and maybe what made I recognize that the movie did not deliver as well as the book, but then the movie's really good because it is the book given visual form. For me, that's why I liked it. A lot. And it is popcorn fare. That's usually not enough for me to give it like a good rating or anything. But it is that. It certainly is that. And some of the stuff like a lot of the human alien hybrid technology looked really good, really cool. The inside of the giant, alien mothership was something. And really the other reason that I want this movie to do very well, and that I didn't mind laying down money for it to go see it in theaters, is I knew ahead of time, because I read the book, that there was that at the end, it ended not with a cliffhanger, but it ended with an opening for a third movie, because you find out that there's like this Siri kind of spherical, alien creation that is leading a resistance against these aliens from, that were the main enemies in this movie and in 94. And I want to see that movie. I want that third film. And actually a lot of the, kind of movie press had been saying, okay, we didn't, we think Independence Day sucked or we weren't big fans of it, but we really want this third movie. So I'm kind of hoping they're willing to gamble and maybe take the reins away from Roland Emmerich, who wants to remake Stargate, and that's just ridiculous. Take the reins away from Emmerich and Dean Devlin and give somebody else this third movie, or if anything, make a sequel book. This is kind of like what happened. Now, a movie that I actually really loved was the movie version of Wing Commander. I love the games too. But the movie of Wing Commander with, Matthew Lillard and Freddie Prinze Jr., great guy. They made sequel books to that after the fact. And the sequel books were great. So I hope at least, and Wing Commander bombed. I mean, so if Wing Commander can bomb, IDR certainly did a lot more money than Wing Commander. So hopefully we can get some sequel books. But, the other part that made, and that would appease me if they are not going to ever make a third movie. Even though the movie ends with Dr. Oakham, that being Brent Spiner / Data, Brent Spiner's character saying, we're going to go kick some alien ass, right? That's literally how the movie ends. And then it cues to the music. So I hope we get that third movie. If anything, let's get the, third and let's get the third books, third and fourth and fifth. That's the book series can run forever. And a lot of people don't know that too. Like that's part of, I think, what made the movie good for me as well, is that because I saw a ton of people complaining in reviews saying, I don't understand what happened to this character. I don't understand why this character isn't here, blah, blah, blah. If you read Crucible, you know the answer to all those questions. You know what happened to David Levinson's, what happened, what was her name? Colleen? What happened to her? She died in a car accident after becoming a senator. All these things if you read Crucible. And I like this. I actually like the fact there was tons of fan service in this movie. There was the Oakham laser. You never saw the Oakham laser in ID4, but you see it in IDR, and he acts like he's had it forever. Well, he has. If you read the book from, I think the book came out in 99. If you read Silent Zone, which is a prequel to ID4, you would find out that Dr. Oakham did create the Oakham laser. So there's the book series, the extended universe or the expanded universe of Independence Day got referenced left and right in this movie. And I thought that was really cool. I really, really enjoyed that those references were in there. And I like the fact this is something that I hope becomes more of a payoff with Star Wars. And really with I know Star Trek, it's going to be the case too, because actually Simon Pegg said for the coming Star Trek Beyond movie, that they went to Memory Alpha to find little things to put in for the fans. Memory Alpha is the Wikipedia of Star Trek. And I was like, oh, that's great. I want this sort of stuff to be there. And in fact, honestly, I want it to go so far, not just to where there's nice Easter eggs for, hardcore fans to find things. I want it to get to the point, and I think IDR kind of did this. I want it to get to the point to where if you want to understand the movie, you're going to have to read the books. You need to read the comic books. I want people to have to get invested into a multimedia experience. Okay. I mean, that's my own desire. I'm not saying you need to do this, you should do this, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, I don't think that way. I'm an anarchist. I'm just saying in general, I look forward to franchises that require you to get to be able to understand and get the full experience, that you have to really go knee deep into the franchise and into that universe. And I feel like in a lot of ways, IDR was the first attempt at people trying to do that. And I don't blame them for thinking that, because why wouldn't people read the prequel book, to Independence Day after waiting 20 years? But even people that I heard like on Collider and others that said, oh, we're huge Independence Day fans, obviously based upon their own reviews, they never read any of that shit. And that's the thing. That's why I like that sort of thing. I like having these expanded universes, because you can, you can separate the for lack of a better phrase, you can separate the men from the boys. I don't like to use that phrase, but you can separate, the people that are really into it and the people that are just there for a little popcorn time, and that's fine to do that too. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it's good to get a payoff for the time you invested in really enjoying and researching a fictional universe. I like that. So I enjoyed IDR. Independence Day Resurgence. I thought it was good. It's definitely far better if you read everything, including the novelization of the movie, of Independence Day. Maybe someday it'll get racked up as Dune, to where it's not exactly like the book, but the movie is kind of interesting in its own way. We'll see. Anyway, Carpe Lucem. Woo! I'll see you on the other side, baby. Get on Patreon. Patreon.com/SovrynTech. Get that exclusive content.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.